Hello again and thanks for joining. So today we've got another Märklin model. It's number 37532 and it's a German BR120 electric locomotive. I got this second hand. I actually bought it from Rails of Sheffield. Great shop. Thanks for doing a sale and offering this at a good price. One of the differences you'll notice about this Märklin box over the normal Märklin stuff that we review on this channel is that this box is actually grey and the other boxes are white. And I don't know why this box is grey. You'll also see that it has this symbol meaning that it is for 3-rail operation, and you can also see that it says Digital HO just underneath the Märklin logo. There's a really attractive line drawing on the front of the box, but you can see this strange red section here, and I think that's meant to be a chip inside the locomotive. I'm not very optimistic about getting this running with my dodgy old H&M controller, so this might be just a review video about what it looks like on the outside rather than seeing it going, but I'm sure you can't wait to see what an interesting locomotive this is. So let's get this open and we'll take a look. So first out the packaging is this piece of paper here, and it is all in German, so I'm not actually sure what this is saying. It looks as though it's maybe a warning, and it has the 3-rail logo here, but other than that I don't really understand what this is saying, apart from that it's printed in German. I don't know why that's in English, but there you go. Next we have this folded up little booklet here. It's got a nice line drawing here on the cover, and you can see the number 33532 and also our number 37532, so this is obviously for two different locomotives. And inside we've got another line drawing, and here in English we've got a bit of information about the locomotive in real life, and you can see that it's in different languages as well. There's also some diagrams here, and this one here is showing that you can switch it for catenary or track operation, which is really interesting. This is showing you how you can take this model apart, a simple one screw, and then we've got service information about how to oil this locomotive and how to remove the pantograph if you need to. This locomotive is fitted with a NEM pocket, and you can change the coupling if you want to, so that's really good. So this part of the booklet is talking about the Delta digital control for Märklin locomotives, but interesting here we seem to have some switches. So this is all beyond me. I've never actually learned how to use digital, but I've been assured by my friend Dave at Scott Rails, another great YouTube channel, that he's going to go through setting up digital on his model railway, so I'm going to follow his instructions. I'll put a link to his channel in the description below. You should really check it out. It's good stuff. So just looking at the plastic packaging that this model has come in, you can start to see that it's got the age-old Märklin curse of the packaging going a little bit yellow here. That means it's going to start to become brittle in the future, and then it won't support this locomotive, which will be a real shame. I hope Märklin takes an initiative to solve this problem with their packaging. Anyway, let's get this out and we'll take a look. So here we have the model out the packaging, and something that strikes you straight away, and that is obviously the colour of this thing. It's got a wrap all the way around the model, which looks really cool, and it also has that red roof, and it looks as though it's got some factory weathering on that as well. It's all looking pretty good, so let's have a look at this in more detail. So here we are at number one end of this locomotive, and you can see the design of this locomotive is quite plain, but what you can see here is that the windows are very clear. They've got a really nice silver surround, and they also have the windscreen wipers pinked out in silver as well. And obviously the glazing is so clear that you can see inside no problem, but what you'll notice there is that there's absolutely no interior, which is a real shame. I think it could really benefit from one, even if you maybe just put in a driver as well, but you'd have to cut them off around about the chest height, which is a bit of a shame for the driver. But the decoration on this model is really something else. You can see the Märklin logo and the Deutsche Bahn logo on the front there, the number of this locomotive 139-1, and you can also see these lights here with the silver surround. That's really quite nice. There is a little bit of an issue here where the wrap doesn't quite work on the light on the right hand side to the camera. It's much better on the left hand side, and you can see the buffer beam there has got some really nice detail as well, and this step here with the checker plate and the buffers here. So looking down the side of the locomotive at the cab here, you've got another very clear window and the Deutsche Bahn logo again. The printing over the door does have a little bit of a gap here. I think this would really benefit if you put some black ink around this door and just hide that little white part there. It's also got a little handle that is picked out in silver, and also these handrails here, they're actually extra parts, little pieces of wire which have been added, which is really quite nice. And then as we move down the side of the locomotive, you can start to see the really quite bright and interesting graphics on the side of this. It says Die Bahn verbindet, so I'll put what that translates to in English on the video, and you can see a character here. It looks as though he's playing with a model train, and that train loops round and becomes a real train. Worryingly though, he's kneeling down on a railway track, and if a train was coming, he's going to be in trouble. You shouldn't really do this. You shouldn't definitely not play on the rails, so maybe this is advertising the wrong thing here. As we move further down, there's some more details, numbers printed here. They're very fine. You can barely see them with the naked eye. And here at number 2 end, there's another Märklin logo. One of the things I did notice is the print doesn't go too well just at this point here. You can see a little bit of white through here, and again the door suffers from the same thing as well. This door has two handles on it though, both picked out in silver, and that's a great attention to detail because the door at number one end didn't have that. Looking at the top of this locomotive, we've got some vents on the side here. They're very nicely moulded into the main piece of plastic. You've got this additional horn that's been added in here. It's a very small part, and the red panel at the top has got this really nice weathering effect on it, which I really like. The pantographs on this one are all metal, and obviously we saw in the instructions that you can pick up electricity through these, which is really good. The rest of the roof here has got some really nice detail, this silver grille here, and lots of little extra parts that have been added on to represent all the electrical gear on the roof of this locomotive, and it's really quite nice. And they have these wires going through them as well. So this has been modelled really very well up here. And then finally, as we get to the other end of the locomotive, you see another pantograph and another horn added up there. So looking down below the body, you can see this little step on the other side here. This is absolutely tiny, and it's sticking right out the front of the locomotive, so that could easily break off. You're going to have to be careful there. Here we have the coupling. It's a standard Märklin one in an M pocket, and it's attached to the bogie, so there's no additional articulation. Here you can see the snow plows which have been fitted, which are really quite nice. And then we come to this first of the two bogies, and the moulding here is absolutely incredible. There's so much detail on here. All the springs and even the pipe work and the brake gear, it's really very well done. I'm actually quite impressed with that, and it's very deep relief on the moulding as well. Underneath you can see the standard Märklin skid, which I really absolutely hate. You know this already. I don't know why they continue to stick with this system of pickup, because I just think having this hanging down the bottom just looks really naff. But anyway, as we look further down the locomotive, we've got some more details here in the middle, all very nicely moulded. Very deep relief on that as well, so it's really quite pronounced and very good. We've got this part here added in, and then there's another bogie at number 2 end. This one is slightly different. It's got this part hanging down the bottom here. That's a great attention to detail because they haven't just whacked on two of the same bogies, they've actually made them bespoke. And underneath here you can see the Märklin made in West Germany. I didn't realise this was so old. I guess it must have been before reunification of Germany, because it still says West Germany on there. It's upside down in the video, but it does actually say that. And you can see the traction tyres on this, so this must be the driven end. You can see the gearbox there. Here's a screw to get this model apart, so I think we should do that just now. While I'm doing this, I'd just like to mention that I've got a range of Model Railway and train spotting books on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description below. Any purchase you make really helps this channel, so thanks very much. So as expected, it was just one small screw and that held the two parts together. Once that came away, the body came off really quite simply. This is a plastic body, and inside you can see the part here for the lighting. This is the part for the cab detail, or perhaps I should say the lack of. I think you could probably take these out and probably 3D print some seating and stuff in there, because there is a bit of space above the chassis. I don't know why they've just made it a blank piece there. Maybe it's just for budget reasons. Here you can see the metal part which runs the whole length of the locomotive, which picks up power from the overhead, so it's either or both of the pantographs, and it'll send power down into the motor. You can also see here where the wire for the handrails at the door has come through the body and is being bent into place. And here is the chassis. It's made of all metal. There's a bulb at the front, no LEDs on this one yet. And here is the motor integrated into this bogie. It just moves with it, and you can see all the resistors on this side of the motor, and obviously there's no flywheel in this. It just runs through a gearbox to the wheels at the front here. This part here is where you can switch between 3-rail pickup and overhead pickup, and there's a little slider under here that you can do that with. Here's a circuit board with the switches that we saw in the instructions, and then at this end is another light bulb as well. So it's quite a simple affair apart from the circuit board, but it is quite good that it's got this switchable part here between overhead and 3-rail. So just consulting the instructions again, I did actually notice it's got these two things here, which is quite interesting. I've never seen this before. Acceleration and brake and delay on this dial, and this one says maximum speed on the other dial. And you can see these here on the circuit board, so you can change these around as you see fit. That's quite an interesting thing. And also looking at these diagrams up here, I can see that it's been set for digital already, this locomotive. But here it says address for all operating modes, and it seems to be a different setup to what we've got. So what I'm going to do is set it for all operating modes and see what happens. So that seems to match the diagram, so I'm going to give this a try and see what happens. So I don't have any 3-rail track at the moment, unfortunately, so I'm just going to put some wires on this and see what happens. So you would have noticed when I put some power onto this that it did actually start moving, and it seemed to prefer going in one direction rather than the other. I actually think it maybe needs a little bit of oil, so I've just taken it apart a little bit here to expose the gears, and I'm just going to add some oil into this. Okay, let's see if that's any better. So a bit of oil really did help this locomotive get going, but we still have a bit of a problem. It seems to run fine in one direction, but the other direction it just seems to crawl along, and I don't really know why. I've done a couple of searches online. I can't figure out what is going wrong with this locomotive. So if you happen to know what the solution to this is, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know, and then I can get this locomotive running perfectly. But for now, let's get this back together. So now that we've got this back together, let's find out how much it weighs. So this locomotive weighs 499 grams. So it still remains a bit of a mystery about why this locomotive only wants to go in one direction at any kind of speed and just goes the other direction really slowly. But that aside, there's a lot going for this locomotive, and undoubtedly the main draw is the graphics on it. It's got this wraparound print that has been really well executed by Märklin, so well done to them for even trying to attempt this decoration on this model. It's also matched with the weathering on the roof in the red panel. That's really quite cool. I'm not quite sure though why it didn't extend onto the rest of the cab roof, for example, and therefore it looks like it's the red section's been weathered but everything else hasn't. So that's a little bit odd. It could be improved just a little bit if you wanted to weather this model a little bit more. The electrical components on the roof are really outstanding on this model. There are so many bits and pieces going on up there, and the wires across all of it make it look really cool. I really like the fact that these pantographs pick up from the overhead as well. That's a really nice feature. And the bogies on this model are absolutely outstanding. The detail on them is really good and it's very well defined. And finally, it's even got wire handles as well at the cab doors, which is really great. A couple of small niggly things on this. Firstly, the interior. I don't know why they didn't put some indication of interior in here, especially because the glazing on the windows is so clear. And if I can be fussy about the paint job, it doesn't work so well where there's a gap and you see the white line. But like I said, just a little bit of black ink would really help that. So should you add this to your collection? I think Märklin have really stepped up with their quality on the models that they now produce. This one isn't even current, it's an older model, but yet you can really see that the detail has been improved on this. They've always been very good at printing things on the side of their models, and this one is quite a bold print to add onto a model, but they've actually managed to pull it off really well, and it really does look fantastic. But understandably, this paint job isn't for everyone, but Märklin do make this model in a whole range of different liveries. This is just one of many that you can get if you're interested in getting this locomotive. It's got some really interesting electrics on this, so obviously it can run as digital or analog, as we've seen, although it does have a couple of problems that I'm not quite sure about, but that might just be because of this particular locomotive or the controller I'm using, which is quite an old controller. I really like that they've put those dials in to change the acceleration and braking delay and also the maximum speed. Never seen that before in a locomotive, so I'm really quite impressed that it's got it on this model, and it also works on DC as well. So I really feel that the electronics on this model are a step above just normal DC models. But certainly the 120 from Märklin I would recommend you add to your collection. I hope you found this video interesting. Let me know in the comments below what you thought, and also if you know why this is running a bit slow in one direction, please let me know so I can get this up and running properly. And please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It really helps this channel, and you can subscribe if you want to have a look at some other models. I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around, but that's it for today. See you next time.